Hey Acers, I'm glad I could be back with you again this week, and I just wanted to put together a quick video tonight to give you a little bit more about where we've been going with our Savage Worlds stuff, and wanted to also thank you guys for having stuck with me this long. You're doing great, I know you are, and I'm looking forward to helping you to refine your techniques and to be able to make yourself a better game master. I am so grateful to be here on the Ace Role Playing Games channel and the Ace Role Playing Games Club. And I am the host, Mason Emerson. And for those of you who might be new and have just jumped in at this video, there are videos that are before this, but this is a good place to start as any. And you can go back and watch the others. So this is the continuing of the Simply GM series, focusing on game mastering Savage Worlds. And if you guys like these videos and everything, when I get done doing Savage Worlds, maybe I'll do another system, and you'll have to challenge me to learn a new system. But I mean, I could talk about D&D, but lots of people have done D&D game mastering channels, and I'm trying to give you some basic techniques through use of Savage Worlds to apply to any game mastering scenario you may end up in. And I'll start this video off with the reminder. We as game masters don't need to know how to solve the problem. We just need to know how to make it. So your players are going to solve the problem. You just need to throw the problem at them. And remember that you are their eyes and ears. You are their senses. So when you are throwing things at them, just remember that you can really screw with them. Because one of the things I've been doing this week is I've been listening, the last couple of weeks actually, I've been listening to The Lord of the Rings again. And The Lord of the Rings is an excellent, excellent book series. And I'm sure many of you have read it. And if you haven't read it, I highly recommend it. It's safe for all ages and it's a good story. It's well told. But one of the things that I like, and Lord of the Rings made me start thinking about this, is the idea of screwing with the senses of the player characters, telling the players that everything looks peachy and rosy when things are secretly getting worse. Or on the flip side, saying, okay, make a roll for nausea, make a spirit fear roll or a vigor roll to indicate the nausea that the character's starting to feel as they're getting deeper and deeper into the Black Lands, and make it so things aren't really what they appear to be. Like a cat suddenly appears to be some sort of a slavering demon thing until you get up to it and then it's cat. Remember, you can play with their heads like that, and that's a good thing to do. So real quick, let's talk about the next parts of our specialized rules, our situational rules, things that come into play only in certain situations. We've talked so far about aim, area of effect attacks, bound and entangled, what those mean, and breaking things. So this time, let's talk about called shots. So called shots, of course, are when your character if you're playing a character, or when one of your players playing a character, takes aim at and tries to shoot a specific spot. Now, they might target the head or the hand. If they target the hand, that's a -4. Because if you look at this hand compared to the rest of my body, the hand is much smaller. So hitting my body, that's a pretty big thing. But hitting this hand, this is not going to be easy. So that's got a -4. So technically you've already failed unless you roll well. So they got to roll well. And they can disarm if they hit the hand. If you're shooting for the head or the vitals themselves, like in the gut or the heart area, in a living creature, that adds a +4 to the damage. But the penalty does go up to -5 if you're going through like a helmet with a visor. well, actually going through the visor, that's even going to be tighter. But if they're wearing an open-faced helmet, they had you can bypass their armor, but the penalty is -5 if they got an open-face helmet on, like a soldier. Now, um, using the dimensions on the scale table for items, targeting is something like the size of a pistol, for example, is a -4. A 3-foot long sword is a -2. If you're aiming for a limb, like to wound a leg or an arm, that's a -2. If you're aiming for an unarmored area, oh, like I said, isolate of a helmet, -6. That's tiny. And very small will just be like a -4. Now, let me tell you about your best friend in times of bullets: cover. And this is one place where I totally compliment Shane on the way he thought this through. And I'm sure it came from some experiences that he's had in his own life and everything, being as he did get to serve our country for a bit. And I thank him for that service. But the idea of taking cover is very important. If someone's hitting at you in melee combat, you can duck behind like a wall or something and have their sword hit the wall, or partially hit the wall or something. If like a quarter of the target's obscured, that's light cover, -2 penalty. If there's medium cover, like half the target is obscured or the target is prone, if you are not right next to them, with them not being obscured because you're standing right next to them, there is a -4 penalty. So when the bullets start flying, hit the deck, get down, and have your NPCs, have your villains use that tactic. Have them stand up, taking some of their movement, take a shot with their weapon, and then drop back down to get back at least some medium cover. Heavy cover is like 3/4 of the target obscured. That's a -6. Near total cover, where the target is barely visible, that's -8. So obviously it'd be like -8 or -10 if they're behind a wall. Now, sometimes those obstacles give a bonus to, I mean, sometimes you can shoot through an obstacle. And sometimes the obstacle gives a bonus to, like, that cover gives a bonus to your armor, for example. So, like heavy glass, thick leather, drywall, something like that. Well, not drywall exactly, but heavy glass and thick leather. Drywall, yeah. But because I have an uncle who was a soldier and everything, and he pointed out that sometimes you shoot through the drywall, but it does give a +2 bonus to the damage. But AP will take care of that. Sheet metal or steel car door, that'll give a +4. Oak door, cinder block walls, things like that, +6. A brick wall would give like a +8, and a stone wall or bulletproof glass or tree would give like a +10 if it's a big enough tree. So like if you're in a gunfight and you duck behind a table in a restaurant, you might see those bullets coming through, but they're coming through at a +2 to your armor or penalty. Another thing that you can choose to do is to defend. That increases your parry by +4. And you can take, but it takes your entire turn, and you can't do a multi-action. You can't defend and then attack. But what you could do is like a parry attack would be kind of a little closer, but defend just gives you your parry +4. Because I'm thinking of when I used to fence and things like that. The bonus lasts until the beginning of your next turn. To disarm, so we talked about shooting somebody in the hand. So maybe your cowboy's really good at that. So you shoot him in the hand and you disarm him. A character can try and make an opponent drop a weapon or other object by making a melee or ranged attack. You have to make the called shot, and if you hit the weapon, you have to roll against the breaking things. If the attack is against the wielder and shakes or wounds them, then the defender has to make a strength -2 roll. And if it hits a limb, or if it hits a limb, -4 if it hits the hand, plus any wound penalties that happen as a result. Failure means they drop whatever item is in the hand. So we mentioned when we talked about entangled and bound, we mentioned the statuses of distracted and vulnerable. So let's take a look at distracted and vulnerable for a second. We mentioned before when we were talking about applying damage that there is the shaken status. And that is when that bullet whizzes right past your ear and you're like, yeah, you weren't actually hurt or otherwise affected. Well, distracted is kind of another level. And they keep that status until the end of their next turn. So, and that's for distracted or vulnerable. But distracted means that the distracted individual subtracts 2 from all of their rolls until the end of their next turn. Vulnerable means that all attacks made against the target are at a +2 until the end of their next turn. So we'll get to tests in a little bit, but remember, distracted and vulnerable are here in this section because they were very nice and organized them alphabetically for us. So incidentally, vulnerable does not stack with the drop, which is the next thing we're going to talk about. And I just watched the drop this last Thursday get used to full massive effect and watched as my final villains, my final 4 super villains, were cremated by the heroes because I gave them the drop. I shouldn't have done it. Should have just given them an attack with no with the other team not being dealt in. But at the same time, we were running out of time, and it was a great finale. And they all went away from the table feeling pretty stoked. So if I was to play it longer, I probably wouldn't have given the drop to them. But since it was a one shot, we needed to kind of do it in a 3-hour time window, and a couple of the people showed up late anyway. This one worked out really well. They actually were playing Teen Crush. My friend Tracy Sizemore wrote that. She's amazing. Just anything you can get by Tracy Sizemore. And these ones are in the old Savage Explorers. So Teen Crush you'll find in, let me see if I can pull this up real quick. There we go. Teen Crush is in Savage Explorer number 8. And The Curious Death of Violet Evans is another one that she wrote, and it's in one of the earlier ones. And that's for East Texas University. And she also had a big hand in writing The Holler. So plug to some great Pinnacle products there. So sometimes you catch the foe completely flat-footed, and that means you get the drop. And only the game master can decide whether or not that happens. And usually the victim can be bound or completely unaware of the attack. And it's usually up close, but it can also be in other situations where the game master thinks is good, like a sniper attacking an unaware stationary target. But the drop adds +4 to a character's attack and damage rolls for the to that target for one action. So that's one place where I think I might have made a little mistake. So see, even I, with my experience in this, have made some mistakes, and I'm working on getting better at those mistakes. But you can also do a knockout blow if the character takes enough damage to be shaken or worse from an attack. With the drop, they have to make a vigor roll and a -2 if it was to the head or be knocked unconscious. And knocked out characters stay that way for about half an hour until the GM decides it's dramatically appropriate to wake up. So another thing you can do is evade. You can, like, if there's things like a flamethrower, dragon's breath, attacks that kind of telegraph where they're coming to or from, those attacks that state they can be evaded. If the attack says if the attack doesn't say it can be evaded, it can't. Victims are just simply hit. But attack can be evaded. The character makes an agility roll at a -2, and those who are successful manage to avoid the attack and take no harm. So that's a good thing. And this was an area. If it's an area of effect attack, the GM can place basically it means that you kind of jumped outside of like the grenade's blast or something like that. And let me talk to you now about fatigue. Fatigue is, as a game master, one of your best friends. Put the villain on the other side of a fire-filled room that's filled with smoke, because smoke is actually the more dangerous thing than even the fire in real life, because smoke gets into your lungs and it makes it so you can't breathe and it can take you out faster. So to represent that, Savage Worlds has built in the fatigue mechanic, which is for the first level is fatigued, and at that level you'll notice it on the character sheet. All rolls are made at a -1. The second level is exhausted, and that victim subtracts -2 or subtracts 2 from all trait rolls. And then if and so it goes in this order. So fatigued is the first level. If they take another level, they go to exhausted. Exhausted, if they take another level, they just go to incapacitated. So the fastest way to incapacitate a player character is to fatigue them and keep hitting them with something that gives them fatigue. It gets you there one level faster than damage. Now, unless specified by the source, fatigue and exhaustion improve one level per hour. Incapacitated characters are helpless and maybe even unconscious for up to 2d6 hours. And if the hero suffers fatigue from different sources, with different recovery times, you remove one level when the effect of the shortest duration expires, and then another level when the longest expires. So also that leads us to hazards and things like hunger, thirst, sometimes have different recovery conditions. And also it stacks with wounds. So if you have a character that has 3 wounds and 2 levels of fatigue, so they're exhausted, that's a -5 on every roll. They're right there on death's doorstep. So that takes us up through the next couple levels of the book here. And I hope you're reading along. I hope you're able to read the different things that are involved in this. And I really hope that you're getting good value out of these videos. I hope that you're able to think about how you're using these rules to make the experience more fun for the characters. Give the players, I should say, a chance to kind of sweat it for their characters. Give opportunities to have them take that damage. And one thing that I definitely recommend you look into is the idea of rolling in the open. Now, a lot of game systems and even Savage Worlds come with cool GM screens. And I love my Savage Worlds GM screen because I've got the cards inserted in there for Savage Worlds Adventure Edition for Suede. And I had to actually laminate the 4th card and set that down on the table because there's 4 cards there and there's only 3 slots. Anyway, the cool thing is that GM screens let you put cards representing the villains up there. It lets you, I like it for the quick reference to be able to see the different rules and see how combat options go real quick. But I think the best thing about it is not rolling behind it, so that way you're rolling out in front so that everyone can see when you are making your rolls and how you don't fudge them for them. You've agreed. It's kind of the social contract of role-playing games. You have agreed that the dice are the arbitrator. Well, anyway, if no one's told you this today, I love you. You're amazing, and the world is a better place because you're in it. This is Ace Role-Playing Games, where we're gaming for good. And we will catch you on the next video. Thanks.